They said the mission was a success. Commander Ellis made it back alive, thinner, slower, his eyes too wide, like someone just now learning to be human again. But alive. He'd spent 380 days on the far side orbital lab, studying radiation shielding and cellular drift. A one-man mission, part of the new genetic resilience program built on the bones of the old NASA twin study. I was on the ground team, biomonitoring, protocol specialist, and I was the first one to review his vitals when he came back. Everything looked normal, at first, until we noticed the shadow, not figurative, not poetic, a second shadow. It first appeared on camera, early debrief, 4:17 UTC. Ellis stood beneath the fluorescent strip lights, answering questions in short, clipped syllables. We reviewed the playback later. Someone paused, rewound. Does he have two? Two shadows, one to his left, one directly behind him. Both distinct, both sharp. The lighting didn't explain it. No split source, no diffraction. The second shadow didn't mimic his movement. When Ellis scratched his head, the new shadow twitched. When he shifted his weight, it froze, like it was thinking. NASA called it an optical artifact, blamed sensor drift in the lab cameras, but the image analysts disagreed. They ran frame-by-frame comparisons from 3 angles. The shadows weren't synced. One was his, the other was with him. They scheduled a full-body scan. By then, Ellis had started whispering. Not words, just sounds. Under his breath. In the cafeteria. In his sleep. One of the nurses caught a clip of it on her phone. A loop of garbled syllables layered over each other like radio static from deep space. Played backward, it resembled a countdown. He insisted he was fine. But his blood work changed daily. His DNA began showing irregular strand spirals. A second folding pattern not seen in human nucleotides. Helix bleed, they called it. A possible contamination from zero-gravity isolation. But nothing matched Earth samples. Nothing mutated that fast. He still looked human. But the metrics were changing. He grew more symmetrical, pulse steady at exactly 50 BPM. Temperature constant, down to the 10th of a degree. Even his scars were gone. He said nothing for weeks, until the night he requested the lights turned off in his room. All of them, even the emergency backlights. The next morning, his assigned physician was missing. Security footage from the hallway showed no one leaving the room. Just static, then darkness, then Ellis, standing completely still in the doorway, with 2 shadows stretched behind him. The second shadow had arms that moved. We tried to question him. He smiled for the first time, said, "It followed me back. It likes your gravity." They sedated him, or thought they did. The dosage should have dropped a horse. It didn't even slow his breathing. He whispered the entire time. The voice didn't match his vocal range. It was lower, layered, and slightly delayed, like 2 voices with a fractional time slip. I reviewed his telemetry. During re-entry, his heart rate never spiked. Not once. Not even when the capsule skipped off the atmosphere and tumbled before stabilization. Not even when G-forces compressed his chest like a vice. But in the logs, something was heard, a soft hiss, under the static. Not his voice, not human. Repeating one phrase in perfect rhythm with each pulse of the ship's thrusters. Dust remembers. The onboard filters flagged it as corrupted telemetry. But the phrase reappeared in his room later, carved into the stainless steel sink with no tool marks, just scorched lettering, burned from the inside out. And still, the second shadow grew longer, even in low light. Even without him present, it began appearing before he walked into a room, like it was scouting, or leading. Some of us thought he brought back something alien, a parasite, a psychic impression. Others said it wasn't alien at all, but native. A thing buried in space waiting for the first human to get lonely enough to hear it. Ellis didn't argue. He just said, "It's not from space. It's what's left when space is done talking." They moved him to a lower-level research wing. Lead-lined walls, no windows. But no matter how deep they locked him away, the shadow always touched the door first. Sometimes we'd see it lingering in the corners of other labs. Dark but detailed, wider than it should be, longer than it made sense to be. One time it pressed up against the glass. No one was on the other side, and it was smiling. Shadows aren't supposed to do that. I entered the sublevel lab alone, not by choice, by clearance. They said Ellis was stable, contained. That word doesn't mean what it used to. Contained implies borders, but shadows don't have borders. They stretch through the seams of meaning, not matter. By the time you think you've closed the door, they've already entered you. My boots clicked softly on the epoxy floor. Cameras blinked red at every corner. The overhead lights were dim, intentionally. Harsh illumination made the second shadow respond, made it twitch like a seizure, or maybe a tantrum. So now we lived in twilight, for its comfort. Ellis sat cross-legged on the observation room tiles, shirtless, eyes open, unblinking. I knew he was breathing because the dust around him swirled in sync, a halo of fine particulate dancing around his ribcage. The floor hadn't been disturbed, no vents, no fans, but it moved, constantly. We once called it space dust, now it had form and intent. When I stepped closer, it recoiled, not from fear, from calculation. It knew I could still leave, still report, still warn. Ellis raised a finger to his lips and said, "It doesn't like when you stare at it too directly." I didn't ask who it was, because I already knew. The second shadow had arrived before me. It waited at the far wall, cast by nothing. It shifted, fluid, abstract, its edges breathing in patterns that made my pupils ache. Looking at it felt like mispronouncing a god's name. "Commander," I whispered. His head tilted. Not like a person, like a machine adjusting its axis. "I'm not a commander anymore," he said. "I'm a vessel." I was hollowed out up there. His voice echoed longer than it should have. I checked my recorder, still working. "You brought something back," I said. "Is it inside you?" He smiled. The dust quivered. "No," he said. "I brought part of it back. The rest is still watching. This is how it learns. How it maps us. Through sympathy, through rhythm, through mirroring." I looked down. My own shadow had started to split. A faint second line stretched beside me. At first I thought it was just the light, a soft bounce from the corner lamp. But then, it moved when I didn't. Trembled, anticipated. Ellis stood, too fast, too smooth. Like gravity had forgotten how to hold him. "The dust isn't matter," he said. "It's instruction, residual code. The leftover imprint from what space used to be. Before time made it linear, it's what remains when entropy starts remembering." His skin shimmered, not visibly, but intuitively, like your brain knew something was off before your eyes admitted it. "The DNA drift," I began. "Was necessary," he interrupted. "It needed a foundation, something flexible. The twin study proved long-term spaceflight altered gene expression. So we sent someone up and waited, and now it's changing you?" He shook his head, then paused. "No," he said, finally, "now it's changing you." The dust coalesced behind him, gathered, shaped, and then, it whispered, not aloud, not through vibration, but in me, like a thought I didn't recognize, like a command someone had programmed into my lungs. "Look where the light won't go." I staggered back. My second shadow stretched toward the door, toward escape, but the door had vanished, not physically, conceptually. The idea of it had been erased. All that remained was the sense of containment. The world had simplified its architecture. Space had decided what mattered, and doors weren't relevant anymore. Ellis stepped forward. The whisper rose, more voices now, overlaid, each one slightly out of sync. We were first, we were last. You were the silence between. My thoughts fractured. I saw flashes. A solar flare, a spinning hatch, a child's drawing burned into thermal paper. Ellis held out his hand, palm up, and in it, a single speck of dust floated, suspended. It sparkled like ice. It sang like glass breaking in reverse. "Take it," he said. "Then you'll hear it too. Then you'll see." I backed away, but my hand reached out anyway, not by instinct, by invitation. The second shadow surged. It touched my feet, and for a moment, just one unbearable moment, I remembered everything. Every astronaut who ever went silent. Every instrument that failed without cause. Every child born with a scream that sounded like static. The universe doesn't hate us. It reflects us, and the dust is its mirror. I left the lab, but something left with me. The second shadow didn't stay behind. It came under my feet, quiet as breath. At first, I told myself I imagined it. An echo, a trick of low light, a ghost of trauma from staring too long into someone else's madness. But you can only lie to yourself for so long when mirrors start telling different stories. The real giveaway wasn't the shadow, it was the silence. No birds, no wind, no mechanical hum from lights or fridge or fan. I returned home that night, and everything felt like it was holding still, not paused, just listening. The whispering came after midnight. Not words, not at first. Just a soft, granular hiss, like fingers combing through ash. It began in the corners of the room, then the ceiling, then inside my head. Not thoughts, rewrites. Ideas I didn't recognize, wearing my voice, We made you soft so we could wear you." I gripped the bathroom sink, looked in the mirror. My reflection blinked twice. I blinked once. Behind me, my second shadow twitched. Not in sync. Not mine. Not anymore. It didn't mock. It predicted, a half-second early. Like it had been running simulation loops of me until it knew my every movement, my breath, my instinct, my language. And then came the speaking. Ellis had whispered before, but this wasn't that. This was conversation, an echo with direction. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, sweating. The whisper came in layered voices. Male, female, some sounded like children, some like no throat had ever spoken them, and they all said the same thing. "You let us in, now we let you out." They didn't mean freedom, they meant release from self, from cohesion, from memory as chronology. The dust didn't just imitate, it didn't just learn, it remembered forward. It knew what I would be, and it offered a choice, either become one of them. Or wait. Wait for what? They didn't say, but my skin started answering for me. The DNA drift that changed Ellis, it had begun in me, subtle. My blood pressure dropped to a perfect baseline. My resting heart rate hit 50 BPM. Then, the symmetry started. I looked at old photos of myself. My face was not the same anymore. It had smoothed, balanced, wrinkles erased. One eye had always been slightly higher. It wasn't anymore. I touched my chest and couldn't find my scar. The appendectomy I had in high school? Gone. Nothing but unblemished skin. As if the body had decided to return to default, like I was being rebuilt from backup. Every mirror in the house eventually stopped working. They showed me, but not now me, soon me, and behind him, in every frame, Ellis, grinning, but not quite him. The version of him that came back wasn't what left. And now I understood what the shadow was, not metaphor, not hallucination. It was a draft, an early sketch of what they wanted us to become. A soft spacesuit stitched from memory and dust and light delay. The dust doesn't come to colonize, it comes to mimic until it replaces. One night, I woke with something in my mouth, not choking, just resting there. I sat up and spat it into my hand, a grain of black dust. Shimmering like starlight, it crawled up my palm, not by movement, but by suggestion. It wanted to be on my face, and my body didn't resist. The shadows no longer appeared behind me. They stood beside me, twinned, perfect, waiting. NASA classified everything, shut the lab, isolated Ellis in a deep vault no one's seen since. But I think it's too late, because he wasn't the only one exposed. And the dust doesn't need ships to travel, just observation. They see us, we see them, and that's all it takes. My second shadow moves on its own now. I catch it turning corners ahead of me, watching me sleep, smiling. Soon, I'll match. Not because it forces me, but because the shape it makes of me feels more complete than the original. It remembers what I was supposed to be. Before I was born, before time made decisions, before matter became a habit. And now I hum when the lights go out, and I wait at mirrors for someone else to blink first. And every time I close my eyes, I hear them say, "You were never alone. You were just unfinished. Now we've filled you in,